MacroPulse, 16 September 2025. Question number two. Which component of GDP has grown the least since the end of the COVID recession? Report the growth of the component that grew the least among these three. Okay, so I'm giving you these codes. I gave you those codes previously, so you can build upon that. Now, if you're doing this a little bit out of order, we don't quite know what those codes are, which means you got to go to Fred, enter them in, and then you can look them up, or you could go and download them. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. One would be computing the actual growth rate. Growth rate from when, though? Well, it says since the end of the COVID recession. When was the end of the COVID recession? So for that, we're going to need to leverage Fred and in particular the visual device. So let's go over to our good friend Fred. There we go. So I called up a couple of them here. And how do you do that? Just so you see, go ahead, copy one of those tickers off of the Canvas page or whatever. You plop it in right there. Okay, so see the gray shaded region. That gray shaded region indicates recession. See how I highlighted and it goes right up until the end? That means the recession ended in the second quarter 2020, according to the NBER. So what we want to do is see from that second quarter 2020 forward how much it's grown. Well, let's go back to Excel. So we want to get each of these four tickers. Now, I'm only asking for three. I have the fourth in there because that's the total. We're using that for other questions. To get to the total growth, I don't want to do a quarter or a year over year, so I'm going to compute it ourselves. I don't want any transformations. Just put LIN for linear. Quarterly, right? Because we know GDP is quarterly. One date for 1, 2, 3, 4, for all of these all set up. 1/1/2020. Now, we just said it's from the second quarter 2020. I just want to make sure I have enough data so I can do this appropriately. And then you could leave that A4 blank. What that'll do is bring it to the most recent period, which in our case is the second quarter 2025. So once you get that, get data, and boom, you got all these lovely pieces here. Now, what's the growth since the fourth quarter of, not fourth quarter, second quarter. Let's take a peek. Look at the formula, right? It's doing B28, which is the most recent quarter, divided by that second quarter, -1. So from that point forward, how much did it grow? 15.2%. Notice the formula is identical. I'm not doing any dollar signs to lock anything in because, here, I can even do a little Excel magic. When you take that and you drag it over, everything's moving from B's to C's to D's and even E's, although we don't need that. Okay, so when I copied over, I accidentally copied that fill. Now, what was the question? Report the growth of the component that grew the least among these three. 15.2 versus 40 versus 44. The total grew 36, which is a weighted average of those three. So we're going to report down 15.2. How else could you do this? Now, in the spur of the moment in a quiz, you probably don't want to, but let me show you back to Fred. We want to get all of those components in. Now, you could go ahead and take each one and copy and paste into Fred, or you go back and you go to release, search for GDP. And which one do you go? Start at the beginning. Look down for the part that you want. Look at my last video. We talk about how and why you get these. I want real gross domestic product. I don't want percent changes or contributions or quantities or prices or nominal. I want real. I asked for quarterly, so there we go. And you get all these components. Let's look at structures, equipment, IP as components of gross domestic product, fixed non-residential investment. We can add those to graphs. These are going to give you dollars. That's not quite what I want, right? I want the growth since then. I could use an index value for that purpose. Go to edit graph and then click on down to index value. Now, index from where? Well, luckily Fred has it set up for you. Since a recession, since the start of the COVID recession or the End of the COVID recession. All right, so we do that for one. Let's do that to all. Copy to all. And let's zoom in a little bit here, maybe 10 years, something like that. Okay, so then what you can see is right at that point, right at the second quarter of 2020, right at the end of that COVID recession, they're all at 100. We just forced it there. And then every point is going to be relative to the end of the COVID recession. So 115.2 for structures as of Q2 2025. That's reindexed at the end. So what we're going to do then is take that 115.2 divided by where the index started at 100 minus 1. That gives you, hold on to your seats, 15.2%, exactly what we had inside of Excel. Hope that helps.